Hello, it's Radio FM 88 Australia, broadcasting live on free to air, streaming through radiofm88.com.au. Download the app from Radio FM 88 and streaming, of course, onto these Facebook sites. Dreaming the New Dream, Radio FM 88, Sarah Yip, Mindies, Julia Chai. And tonight, I'd like to welcome Sarah, my co-host, Julia, and our show tonight is all about the passion of numbers that Sarah loves to enjoy. Trump, Empire Builder or Heart Healer. And it's, I'll pass it over to Julia.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Sarah. So I guess If you're listening, you're either a big fan of Sarah Yip's or Jeffrey or mine, or you're really into seeing the bigger picture. And Sarah Yip specializes on going behind the scenes and looking at the astrology, the archetypes, the numerology, the life paths. And we're very lucky to have her on today to join us as a guest to comment on one of the biggest games or battles that is currently going on in the US at the moment. So over to you, Sarah. Welcome.
Thanks so much. Great to be back. Always lovely to see you. Feel your energy. I can feel it from here on the Gold Coast. I'm just going to... Sorry, what was that?
That's good.
I'm just going to improve my camera. Just give me one sec. I think that might be better. Is that better?
So while Sarah does that, Jeff, I'm going to hand it over to you. Jeff, are you, you're watching the US elections, and I know you tend to be quite good at sitting back and observing the dynamics, and you've played sport and done strategy both in business and in sport yourself. So at the moment, what are you sort of observing and noticing around the US presidential elections, Jeff?
Well, personally, I like Donald Trump. That may not go very well with a number of people, but I just like the guy because he's not a traditional politician. He says one thing and does another. He's actually accomplished quite a lot. And I listened to his speech that he gave to the United Nations in October. It was a very statesman-like speech and heartfelt for anybody who lived in any other country in the world. It was really pretty emotive. But anyway, it's not about me. It's about Sarah. You're back on, Sarah. It's good to have you back.
All right, I fixed my camera up so you can actually see me now and I don't just look like a cartoon anime character. I'm Asian and that's a little bit of a, an issue with us sometimes.
You're back for a popular demand, you know that.
Oh, you're very sweet. So what do you most want to talk about?
Hey, okay, so I love what you wrote here today, wasn't it? The trolls.
Oh yeah. I was I had someone comment on my YouTube that I was a fake psychic. So you can thank them for that little gem. I'm often inspired by what people write to me. I feel like I'm very I actually need people. They really help me to come out of my shell. So, there's once upon a time I would have just withered whenever I got feedback like that. But when you have kids and you have built your business up and you're a mature adult, you get quite fired up. So I've learned to speak back and use my platform and create a little bit more of an aura or energy immune system around myself. And I feel like that's also because I've been writing these articles on, much more interesting subjects. And so I've had to up my game in terms of psychic protection, even to just do the research.
So really, you're the micro of the macro. I mean, you're just one individual, whereas Mr. Trump has really got a global stage. So whatever you say, you're a bit like the meerkat who pops up and has a good look around, and you duck down before you get shot at. So, but this fella, he stands out there and he's bring him on. He doesn't seem to be afraid of any of the trolls.
Well, he's got a lot of people protecting him, physically and energetically. He's actually surrounded by 11 life paths. I'm an 11 life path. and he's very clever. Just like was it Henry Ford? He said he wasn't the smartest guy, but he knew all the smartest people. And when they challenged him to a quiz, he just said, let me make a phone call, and he was able to answer all their questions. So in that way, he's brilliant. He surrounded himself with people who I would say are using magic. And that's the only way he's probably still alive.
Right.
Well, just tell us a bit about Trump's life path first, Jeffrey, and then we'll Sarah, and then we'll go back to Jeffrey. Okay, just the life path, because we read the article. Our audience
was a 31/4. Is that what you're talking about? Is life path?
That's right. So in the system of numerology I use, it's called the add across system. Not everyone agrees with it, but I like it very much because it shows you all the ages of maturity and when people discover their purpose. All you do is add up his date of birth from left to right, and in this system he is a 31. 3 plus 1 is 4. In the adaptation I've made, the numbers correlate to chakras, so it means that he is personally healing a broken heart in this lifetime, his heart chakra, and you can see that very perfectly in his numbers. By the age of 4, there was a lot of upheaval in his life. His mother had been absent due to illness. He was one of a number of children. It's very clear from his palmistry even that he's obviously been left alone quite a lot and had to fend for himself, become quite tough. And so at 4, he's already had a lot of ups and downs, and also then his family moved to a massive mansion, which I'm guessing would have made it even less likely they had quality time. And then at 31, his adult turning point, he married Ivana. Their son, Donald Trump Jr., was born also a 31/4 life path, which is interesting when you consider there's 45 plus life paths, and his son is the same one, and Barron is also a 4. And he started his real estate renovation deals with the Commodore Hotel. So numerology is so accurate, it blows people's socks off, and it's particularly good for the skeptics. And I consider myself a skeptic, having been a scientist before. I would never, ever have put my name to something unless I was 110% sure it wasn't a bunch of garbage. So Trump is here to heal his own broken heart, as you can see from his life path turning points. It's a lot about him, and it's a lot about his father, and it's a lot about him feeling safe. And I've also done the analyses for the other candidates and vice president and all this. And, you know, a lot of them have quite different themes. Theirs are a lot about other people and humanity, but Trump's is very much about, like I said, his family and his tribe and protecting them.
I just threw up Biden's numbers there.
Yeah, so Biden's numbers, and just to let you know, so in some systems, Trump can be considered a master 22, but I don't consider him one. At most, I would consider him a hybrid, which makes him more adaptable. So Biden's the same. Some people consider him a master 11. Again, I don't, but at most, I would say he's a hybrid. So he's a 2-0, which is the peacemaker, where the 4 is the heart healer or empire builder, which sometimes makes people laugh, but I'll stick by it. You know, the 2 is the peacemaker, and at 20, I believe Biden, he was the only white lifeguard at a community swimming pool where everyone was black. And he said he specifically took the job because he wanted to understand about other cultures. Now, we don't know how much of that is spin, because obviously he's good at that. But I just think it is quite interesting. It's quite interesting because obviously he's known for being, obviously, you know, a Democrat. Kamala Harris, she's a 23/5, so she's here, whereas Biden's healing a lot around the sacral chakra and relationships. Kamala Harris, she will be in the spotlight because she's a 5 and 2021's a 5 universal year, where 2020 is a 4 universal year. So Trump's year is this year, but Kamala Harris is next year. And at 23, she got a woman freed who had been wrongly, I think, arrested in a drug raid. So there was a lot there about speaking up. And then Mike Pence, he's a 37-10-1 pioneer. He's doing a lot with the root chakra, which is all about security. And I mean, that really fits with his background. And at 37, he was already very controversial. He was the head of a conservative think tank, which is a one's job. You know, they're very good at being front-facing. He was attracting a lot of criticism because, you know, for his right-wing views, essentially. So all I'm saying is, you know, my job is just to find the common humanity so people can make better decisions. It's not to sway people either way. I have my own personal political beliefs. I'm obviously a lefty based on being an environmental scientist who's come from a background of racism and charity, but the reason I love my work is it gives me a whole other brain. It actually helps me to think globally, and I just feel more able to be a human, because I find if you stick too much to your own brand of politics, the world becomes very small and very isolating.
Very secular, isn't it, in terms of religion as well?
Yeah, well, a lot of my work is about unpicking the damage of organized religion, particularly on women, sensitive people, empaths, past life witches and healers. And so I'm very careful to allow people to come to their own conclusions. You can't force issues, or people actually spring back to even more extremist views. So there is a bit of a method to my madness.
And that's interesting because, as you say, Donald Trump is actually, pandering a bit to extremist views at the moment, which is becoming quite divisive. That might be an empire tactic, and it might be serving him. And it's actually quite interesting to have that conflicted versus Joe Biden, who you say is more of a peacemaker. And, you can see that he doesn't make it any of his speeches about him. He prefers to leave it about the issues that the population faces.
Well, when you look at Trump's charts, I've done all their charts by hand. So I did the same amount of research I did for my royal family predictions, which is pretty monumental. Trump has a very unusual chart for a politician. I would say he doesn't have the chart of a politician, which is what makes his ascent even more, I suppose, inspiring, but also perhaps catalyzing for some people. So he does not have the numbers for being a real negotiator. He's pretty much take it or leave it. He's got the numbers actually for being ultra private, ultra sensitive, and not one for small talk, whereas most politicians that I've seen have plenty of those numbers. For example, Biden has pretty much triple twos, which is all about diplomacy and smoothing things over, and especially that bond with women and children. But Trump's very much got the numbers of someone who likes to be powerful, but from a distance. I almost wonder if he went into the White House as a way of actually getting a bit of space. Because he gets his own big house with lots of security. It's kind of like having a palace.
Well, he builds resorts, and they all got golf courses, so there's plenty of space there.
Yeah, well, I get I looked at his chart really deeply, and he's very much a hermit in his later years. He wants to be left alone. And perhaps there's a part of him that wants to be left alone, and there's a part of him that still wants to be important and belong to the real world. And I feel like there's a fair amount of inner conflict with him.
Right.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, there's I hear what you're saying about him wanting to be left alone and having a broken heart, as you're saying, healing the broken heart. And we often say that what is in the outside world is also a reflection of what's happening internally. And it actually coincides with the session we had today where we could actually see the energy of pain bodies pretty much consolidating and aggregating and just causing a lot of strife and war. So would it be fair to say that, depending on how people vote, they can either vote for continuation of the defensiveness of pain body and the sort of obtaining the material wealth and the power that a pain body feels that it needs to do in order to be in a situation of control, versus working with someone who's dedicated or put their principle to being a peacemaker and a community builder? Is that the choice that the numbers are showing you that the American population faces?
I wish it was that simple. I wish it was that simple. Let me just add a couple more things. So there's a lot of things I need to bust around numerology. The life path is maybe only 25 to 30% of a forecast. It's the head and shoulders of a body. There's so much more to it. It's like the sun sign in astrology. You're ignoring a huge amount of other information. Donald Trump has a name that's a 5, and that's the rebel, and that's the up yours, and that's the part that wants to be basically like kind of like a teenager with their own space and their own lifestyle. And so he's actually got, like I said, this almost like this inbuilt inner conflict in himself. Part of him wants to be very much the father figure. Part of him wants to be kind of the naughty boy. So that's the first thing I want to say, is I do think we see a lot of those sides of him. And actually, he's got a lot of karmic numbers in his chart all throughout. Karmic numbers are often seen in people drawn to the spotlight, and they often have a lot of past life hangovers. And his karmic numbers are all about being an extremist, being very judgmental, being quite critical. But on the flip side, potentially helping people to find their voice, potentially helping people become more spiritually conscious, potentially helping people to protect their children better. If there's one thing Trump does well, he protects his children properly. He really defends them, and he seems to nurture them. I don't know that you could say that of everything he does, but I feel like that's always a bit of a telling point, the way that the children are turning out. Look, anyway, it's getting a little political, isn't it? What I wanted to say is when I tuned into their energy, Trump's energy and Pence's energy definitely seem stronger. That doesn't always mean they're going to win. Some people are starting to not want that. They're wanting more vulnerability in the world, and they're wanting some sort of connection again. When I looked at Biden's energy and Harris's energy, I kept feeling like Harris was pushing Biden, literally physically pushing him. And I just thought that was really interesting. And if I was American, I guess you would really want to be looking at who will succeed those presidents if something should happen to them. I mean, they're both older men. So I would be looking more there personally. And then I feel like that would help people to make their decisions. And that's actually where you can see there's even more of a difference between them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I wrote in my predictions, I feel like if Biden does get in, he would probably be there a year. I saw a lot of swings in his chart by late next year, and I saw a lot of swings in Kamala Harris's chart. I would think, he obviously has pride. He would want to take some of the spotlight because people would have voted for him, and he's worked his whole lifetime to get there. I think he'd stay for a little while, and then I have a feeling he would go. So that's, I guess, like I said, I'm just trying to give people information, which they may not be able to access in other ways. It's a little bit like giving a trailer of a movie, or that, in a game of chess, being able to predict maybe the next move, but not the one after that. There's only so much even a psychic can see. It uses a huge amount of energy to do any of this kind of work. Just to do their charts, I was having crystal healings and grids placed over me, and it sounds almost excessive, doesn't it? And 10 years ago, I would have thought I was a bit of an idiot. But basically, it can fry my nervous system. And the same thing happened when I tuned into the Royals, and the same thing happened when I tuned into Ellen DeGeneres. These people have some sort of setups, whether they're using psychics or they're using consultants or something. And to get past it, it's quite tricky, Julia and Jeff. I'm not entirely sure how I managed to do it, actually. I've often wondered about it, and all I can say is I believe I don't misuse the information. It doesn't stick. Yeah. And I always talk to their souls and I say, look, I'm just trying to get better decisions made on the planet. And when I was tuning in, it was a really weird situation. So I didn't talk about this in my public articles. But Donald Trump was like so open, like just open. Like as soon as I went in, he was just almost like practically sitting there, and I was like, what the? I just wasn't really expecting that. Maybe that's part of the reason some people really like him. There was just nothing there. He was just fully like, this is me, like in that, that Hugh Jackman movie, this is me, kind of warts and all.
I think the big difference is that we're sitting on the sidelines, receiving our information through Google or other social media sites. We're not actually American citizens who have the opportunity to have a vote. We're just on the sidelines. But it's a lot different when you're actually in America, in your country town or in your city, and feet on the ground, and what happens in your life completely changes the whole perspective of what mainstream media or other social media outlets try to portray. And I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's trying to sell a product or service, isn't it? So Americans can really lap up, the go, big, let's do it for America, the patriotic thing that seems to be in their makeup, their psyche, marching bands, the whole 9 yards. They play football, which is supposed to be going for an hour, and they turn it into a 3-hour game. I mean, they really know how to stretch it out, get their point across, isn't it?
50% of my clients are overseas. Most of them are in America. Most of them are in the hotspots, and most of them are interested in politics, or they're in the entertainment industry, or they're in business. So I have a huge interest in America. I was actually going to live there. I've been there several times. So you could say that it still affects all of us. I mean, I've actually got a theory that all of the world exists on our body. And so literally there would be a part of your body that would correspond to that Donald Trump part, where it's quite clear in its agenda whether it's kind of, whether you like it or not. And there's a part of your body that'll be perhaps more like Biden and sort of, just trying to get to the top while you still have time. And so I think there's still a relationship, and the world is so close now. I mean, before COVID, we could get to America in half a day, one day.
14 hours, Brisbane to Los Angeles.
Say that one more time.
14 hours, direct flight.
Yeah, so I can only say that I still think it's very much a world issue, the US election, and all the clients I'm working with, everyone's feeling it. I've been feeling it from here. And it's a very tense week. All my forecasts have been talking about, I can just literally feel people have stopped breathing. And I've been doing my very best to get them to start breathing again, because what it felt like to me, when you give birth to a baby, which maybe you haven't done in this lifetime, Jeff, maybe before, there's a lot of tendency to hold your breath because you just want it to slow down and you don't want it to hurt. And it's just most natural thing in the world is just to stop breathing, right? But it's not only not good for you, it's not good for the baby. It's not good for the future. It makes it more painful because tension creates stress, creates a chain reaction. So actually the best thing you could do is that long, slow breathing. And I've said in my forecast, I feel like we just put too much emphasis on events rather than journey, because the birth we're in right now is the result of many decades or centuries of journeying. And that's what actually gives me hope about the world, because when I look at the journeying, I feel like humanity is going in a beautiful direction. I personally have little children, and I look at the quality of souls coming to Earth, and they wouldn't waste their time if we were about to just terminate. So I just look at the journey rather than always the individual battles, and I still feel really positive. I feel like, because with my predictions, I couldn't see who won. I don't think it's fated, to be honest, which is my best offering to you. It's not done yet. Everyone still has a lot of power here. But whatever happens, you don't have to swallow it hook, line, and sinker. Just because you marry someone doesn't mean you have to put up with every single horrible bad behavior. You still have a voice, right? People are like, oh, it's all over because of the Supreme Court thing or whatever. And I'm like, you're just placing too much emphasis on events and not enough on journey. Because, you could have a great birth with a baby and then a terrible next 6 months. And it's, same as if you had a terrible birth and then a good 6 months. So I guess what I'm saying as a mother is breathe. And then we're all going to end up in better shape, whatever happens next. Does that kind of make sense? Because there is a sense of birthing a new world right now.
I can't take that on board. Hey, I'm just going to put this up there because I really felt this is where our conversation was going to go tonight, is about what you wrote about being an empath or a psychopath, or just the path. And I think that's what you're just saying there, aren't you?
Yeah, well, the idea, because we're in the heart chakra year, and this is a little bit of solar plexus healing from last year, 2019, is you can be the hero, the victim, or the narrator. And a lot of people are still in hero or victim, and that's where they're getting stuck with this US election thing. Someone's going to be the hero, someone's going to be the victim. I just don't see that at all. I can definitely see positives and negatives of both. the presidential candidates. And, you know, in numerology, the empath is Donald Trump. And it's quite possible one of the reasons he lashes out so much is he's just totally overwhelmed. The numbers he's got, he would probably be better if he was actually out the back and guiding future leaders or something, because I don't think he likes to get his hands that dirty. And I almost feel like he might be in a bit of a wrong position. He's just sort of ended up there because no one else wanted to do it, really. And it's kind of weird, right? I wasn't expecting to see that when I did his numbers, but I don't know. When I first came across his work many years ago, I really liked him. Right? And he, you know, you read the accounts of him when he was younger, he was quite charming. There was obviously there's been accusations of fraud the whole time, which I don't entirely know about, but his numbers actually show he's empathic, which I know it sounds crazy, right? Because you hear about him sort of doing things which seem to be a bit aggressive, but I've seen empaths do that. When they're pushed too far, they can be some of the most, like I said, extreme people, because they're kind of on or off. There's no middle ground with them. So I would actually, what I saw for him is he really needs to have a good rest. Probably I'd say from about April, June next year, actually see him taking a good rest, and his whole family goes into this big shift period around probably from March, but around April to June. So something's going to happen. Whether he gets back in and then takes some kind of rest, or he doesn't get back in and he moves country or takes some sort of rest. I feel like he's pretty overwrought. He looks like he's taking it, but again, looking at his chart, I think it's affecting his heart. So where...
I certainly hope he's going to have a rest, because I think I see like you. I think he's overwhelmed. I think he can't keep track of what he said or the impact of it. But he does seem to be really doubling down in terms of the elections and wanting to stay in power. And I don't know whether it's just him or other people.
I don't think he's got a plan B. I don't know. I just don't think he's got a plan B. I mean, I think we're all pretty aware that if he gets out of the White House, he's in a lot of trouble. He may not have a lot of protection. I'm sure you know, Jeff, there's a lot of people wanting to sue him. And I just don't think he has a plan B. Like when I was tuning in and I sort of asked what were the different scenarios that could happen, the first thing I saw was the Titanic, and I saw him going down with it. So I think that is one possible scenario, is that he just doesn't have a plan B. And sometimes that might be enough to get him across the line, because in a way his will might be enough to just swing the election. Or maybe I saw that because maybe he really does just need a long rest.
Just changing the subject. Sometimes, you know, when you ask for a car park, you get your car park, don't you?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Only if I don't need the exercise. If I need the exercise, I don't get the car park.
Right.
I've got an agreement with my guide. So there's these steps to spiritual awakening. The first step is you have no idea you're spiritual. Everything is just an accident or happens to you. The second step is you realize you can manifest, get super excited, start manifesting things, and then just kind of like a child in a shop, and it's kind of self-indulgent. And the third step is where you start, or fourth step, you start working with spirit, going, you know, what's really the best for the overall group. You use your magical powers as part of more of a collective thing. So sometimes I get a park, and if I don't, pretty much always I see some little old lady get it. And I'm like, oh, well, that'll be me one day. We just take turns.
Yeah, so the reason I brought it up was if you focus on the vision, you'll manifest it. But when you have option A and option B going into your picture, you don't actually, it becomes all like a Picasso, you know, it's all an impressionist, and you have to stand back and get all these different art critics that give you their interpretation, whereas a Monet or Rembrandt, it's already painted. Boom. And I think that's where the focus is from Donald Trump. It's just, that's it, we're going for it, on board. If you're not
I
on
just
board,
don't think he has a plan B. Like, honestly, I think he's actually, like, I look at his numbers over and over again. I think this is a very straightforward person, and he's just sort of been pushed and pushed and pushed. And I honestly think not a lot of people want to be the president. They say they do, but I don't think they do. The energetic backlash alone would kill most people. I think I've mentioned that before. It's immense, even just going into it. Like I said, I literally had my crystal healer like on the call with me, just doing his chart and things like that. So I mentioned before, he's got a lot of 11s around him, like everywhere, like in his family, his wife, his previous advisors. And they know how to pull some strings, is what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure he's got a team of people working to keep him up and his energy up. I think Melania is one of the main people who does that. Melania or Melania, I'm not sure how to say her name. She's going through a really big turning point, and I just wonder if she's a bit over it. I feel like maybe a lot of her energy goes into actually protecting Donald. Almost like it really did feel like when I have my kids and I'm out at the shops and I'm always trying to stop them running into traffic, but they really want to run into traffic because they like cars. Yep. I almost feel like she's doing this with him energetically all the time. So I hope that's not me projecting.
She's got tiger energy, yeah.
She's much deeper than she looks, and she's much smarter than she looks, and 11 sometimes go undercover as secret agents. In fact, quite often they're actually inserted into certain societies or communities to actually blow something up, a little bit like the whole Star Wars Death Star, finding the secret soft spot. So I just think watch her for a few years. You might be surprised. She may be the same as now, or something may happen. She may somehow come out of her shell and surprise us all. So yeah, I see her energetically constantly protecting him. I think that's actually why she looks so serious most of the time. I think she's worried about him.
I'm quite sure there's a lot of pillow talk and things that are going on during the day that, you know.
He's said a few times that she's his rock, and I wouldn't be surprised because if you look at their numbers, she fills all the gaps that he doesn't have. She's so much more practical than him. And it's pretty obvious if you look at his former marriages, he's always benefited enormously from marriage. His previous partner, Marla Maples, was also a 2911. At 29, she had, I think it was her daughter, Melania. She started dating Donald at 29. I mean, again, numerology is so accurate. And then Ivana, she was a life past 9, and they can be super devoted with their energy, very sacrificing. So look, I can only say Donald knows how to pick good people. And that is a skill that we could all learn from. I was thinking today that people are like crystals. I've got this beautiful friend, Dennis. Like I said, Dennis Arkan, she helps me with all of these secret missions. People are like crystals, and you know they don't change much. They don't change much. You can polish them a bit. Every now and then, one of them breaks open. You're a bit surprised it's a different color inside. But most of the time, people's characters don't change much. And I just got the impression that Donald, he's still a little bit rough, but he knows how to pick them. He picks all these sort of brilliant people around him. And all I can say is maybe that's one of the lessons we could learn from him, is that one person alone actually isn't enough in this world anymore. You really do need a very, very, very big team.
Well, that's about politics, isn't it? So it's always us versus them. It's always this duality of opposing forces trying to win the government of the day, whether it's our Liberal National versus the Labor, or in the Labor Greens, or in America, you know, it's Democrat.
Politics has a 4 vibration. It's all about the heart, and it's interesting because I often find people with family politics or family conflict are drawn to politics or the business world or sport, because I know for me, my first job was in politics. I still really like following it, and yeah, I come from a very political family, very rich, very poor people, different religions, all kinds of things, and it just sort of sets you up. You kind of get a bit hooked on the drama. Keeps you feeling a bit alive.
His perspective is that he didn't come through. I mean, he had to fight for that Republican nomination, whereas, you know, others have all been career politicians who haven't had any life experiences, such as what Donald's done as a businessman.
He was triggered into that. I wrote that in my article. So what you do is you look back 9 years. That's the last time someone was in a theme. But I remember writing in my article, he was mocked. He was mocked at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Barack Obama and the host mocked him for ever thinking he could be president. They just basically said he was an idiot. And I have no doubt that is why he ran for president. One, because he'd already done it before. I don't know that he was going to do it again. But that's that reactive side of him. And I think when he reacts, it's really with the full force of him. I do think he's very, in some ways, aligned. When he does something, he does it completely. And again, that's maybe something we could all learn, is when you do something completely, actually you become fairly unstoppable no matter who you are. But I think he was triggered into it. I think he was goaded into it a little bit.
I come back to my point before, where he's got plenty of focus, and he's got a goal, and he heads straight for that goal. He doesn't look for a second option, or might have to go to another option, because that's what business is all about. If at first you don't succeed, you look around at other options to see how you can succeed and get your goal. Not many people could actually, say in Australian politics, have a go unless you're like Don Chip, who left and set up the Democrats, or Pauline Hanson. I mean, these are strong individuals who've made an inroads. This guy just
Pauline Hanson's a master number. And firstly, I just want to mention again that Donald Trump is surrounded by master numbers. And so he's benefiting a lot from the fact that they have double energy to most people. Pauline Hanson is a master 33, and I'm pretty sure around that time she'd gone bankrupt. She was just about to go into politics. She was divorced. There was a lot of upheaval for her. And 33 is that double mouse, or big mouse. And interestingly, ScoMo and Jenny Morrison are also 33s. Jacinda Ardern's a 33. There's certainly a lot of these master numbers in politics. Almost all the US presidents were married to 11s or were 11s. So there's some sort of weird correlation there. But Pauline Hanson actually got me into the media. She's possibly the reason I'm talking to you today.
Yeah.
When I was 15, I was at a young farmers conference. So I studied agriculture first. And I was in a room, and everybody was like white Australian. It was in country Victoria, I still remember. And I was like the only Asian. And ABC reporter came just to do a special on the conference, Young Farmers or something like that. And I don't know, for some reason, she just decided it had to be me. And then she's just asking me about Pauline Hanson, and I'm in a room full of like people who kind of supported her. And I actually, that was my first radio interview. And I didn't entirely open my mouth because I didn't want to get beaten up, because they were like doing this like behind the camera.
Yeah.
But yeah, without her, people like me might not have gotten a platform. And look, what I'm saying with Trump, in the end, he's just a person. Don't give him too much power over your life. But, just look at where has he triggered you. And almost always people are saying he's triggered them here. He made their heart start beating again. He made their blood pressure go up. He's made people sort of switch on again. I know a lot of people saying, I finally switched off. But I'm like, well, that's still good too. At least you're taking some action in life again. Politics was getting a bit boring there. So I guess if you were going to look for the gifts, he's got people moving again. And for whatever reason, maybe he's an agent of the universe. Some of these questions just can't be answered, hey? We may not know for 10 or 20 years.
What about you, Julia? What do you got to say?
Yeah, I agree with the whatever happens, just be aware of whether your response to whatever is happening is out of fear or out of love. Because when we're getting worried, that one party might win and then the people that support him might take over, that may trigger feelings of uncertainty and insecurity, depending on which, what the color of your skin is, or what part of the segment of society you are, or what you think about climate change, etc. But that would still be victim thinking, because you're then putting yourself as giving them all the power. So I do agree with both Sarah and Jeff that this is actually the generation where it's the people in the middle who are going to be making a difference. So we have very extreme right and left sides, but it's the people in the middle, people working in health, in law, in society, with the land, that are going to be making individual choices, and collectively they will actually swing society one way or the other. So we do have the power, and we need to be aware when we're being triggered.
Yeah, sorry, keep going.
I actually liked the bit of Sarah brought up, which was to do with everybody's an aspect of ourselves, and it's like a projection, or it's a mirror. And so perhaps there's a real deep spiritual understanding to take place where you go within through meditation or qigong and change your energy, and that you go and meet that particular energy and you transmute that through, let's use the word love, and raise your energy, rise above it, and as a result you actually transform the whole human race, and everybody becomes a master. We just ignite everybody to become a master, where they make their own understanding. They come to an understanding of how they can make and determine their own way in life without being told.
Yeah, well, that's why I was making all these jokes about being president of your United States. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. You could find the part of your body that most relates to Donald Trump and is just really like bold and almost like doesn't care about anyone else. And then the part that's more like Joe Biden, wants to do the right thing all the time, and connect those and send a stream and create bridges. And look, I do a lot of energy processes with people in the readings, and there's this sort of old-fashioned thing of cutting cords. And cutting cords works a little bit, but really what I tend to say is, I always say to Spirit, give me the lesson so I can integrate it and move on. Until I can find the exact spot or place in myself where I'm just like that person, or I've been just like that person, I don't find I can move on. And I just find, like, this is the example I would give. There are people in the world who literally can digest cars. They eat cars, right? They eat bits of cars every day, and then one day they've eaten a whole VW Beetle. Like, when you have strong digestion and you have like strong internal power, this kind of thing affects you, but it doesn't diminish you. You can still digest it, take some good out of it, spit out the bad. And that's that throat chakra activation happening in all of us next year. Like I said, whatever happens, you still have a voice. It's not over, it's a process. For example, like I said, you could have a terrible birth and recover from it. Absolutely. You could do healing with your baby, and they could be right as rain, shortly after. So I just feel like when people know they are powerful and they are souls, that their auras can go out 60 meters, they don't get frightened by other people. They just see them as sort of these interesting beings, and I don't know, things don't get so blown out of proportion. And that's my best take on it, is these are just people. They go to the toilet, they probably burp, and like even Trump's, he's known to eat a lot of McDonald's. Like, they're just people. We're the ones who give them all that power in our head. And my husband always talks about it, how they energy harvest us. Like, the more angry I've talked about this before, when you get angry at someone, you literally hemorrhage energy. You might as well just give them your Visa debit card, because they're just deducting dollar, 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 dollar. And when I put it like that, people usually stop the hemorrhage.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. When he first started, I knew he was actually getting a lot of my attention and energy, and I just said, that's it. I'm not going to pay attention to the latest, most outrageous thing.
Well, you even said pay, like money, transfer energy, pay attention. I mean, I'm doing a webinar on money soon on the 22nd of November, and, just look at the words around money. It's change. People who create change, they literally, they get the money, or people who take the credit, they get the money, or the profits, the ones who we believe know the future, they get all the profits. And I mean, it's a really deep topic, but all I'm saying is, might as well just give them your ATM card if you're going to go down that road. Because it's so obvious when you can see energy, and I think that's where I wasn't able to do that until fairly recently, but to actually see the flow of energy between people. And yeah, the number one way to hemorrhage is anger. As soon as you go into that anger place, for some reason, it's literally like just opening a fire hydrant energetically. And it's no wonder afterwards you feel so tired and you feel sort of so depressed.
Well, it's a bit life. I mean, 7 years as a surf lifesaver. I mean, you have to study the surf before you actually jump in to rescue someone. So quite often you can be placed in a personal relationship where someone's venting and really bringing it out, and you can feel it going, and you can be pulled into that vortex, and you realise you've got to step back for your own safety and your own mindfulness.
Yeah. Or you'll almost, you'll drown, or you'll be consumed. It's all very elemental, isn't it?
Well, you can get caught into a toxic relationship without even realizing how you've been pulled into it, haven't you?
Yeah, well, if there's one thing that studying Trump could do, it could cure you of any sort of addiction to narcissists or people who don't take ownership of their rubbish. I mean, my background is litter prevention. So I literally saw, and not telemarketing, telefundraising. Like, I've seen people at the absolute worst, like the nicest little person just start swearing at you because you tell them to pick up their cigarette butt, or can you donate $5 to these children? So I've sort of seen the fact that people have so many masks. And maybe that's why I so love numerology. But I think I mentioned earlier to you, I can't remember if we were on air or not. I didn't put this in my article, but when I tuned into Trump, I kept getting the kraken, the giant squid. And I felt like, I don't know whether it's his energy, I think it's his family's energy, because you got to understand he comes from a pretty, I suppose you say, tightly knit family. And they're very comfortable in the murky. And they can kind of see in the dark. I think they've got strong intuitive or self-preservation powers, but they're only really comfortable in the dark. You know, if you put a giant squid on the beach, it's just going to perish. And like I said, when I went into the Biden camp, I felt there was all these massive eagles or condors. And it was, I felt literally like the condor and squid were coming for each other in this election. It felt really ancient and karmic. And then I felt, like I said, like the people in the middle just going, oh my God, like the gods are fighting.
So the old Chinese would say, if that's happening, get out the way. Go for cover,
Yeah, like,
let them battle it out, and come back out later.
It's possible they're just going to destroy each other, and then we will actually have some sort of new freedom. It happens with schoolyard bullies, doesn't it? You let the two biggest ones go at it, and all of a sudden there's no bullies.
Yeah, but there's a person on the sideline, and it's called banks.
You're going to have to say that again. I couldn't quite hear you.
People on the sideline watching, and the other ones who pick up, the money trail, which is the bankers, isn't it? So at the end of the day, it all comes back to money, innit? You could just follow the money trail. It'll take you anywhere you want. Yeah,
well, like I said, my next webinar is on money. That's a whole nother call. I like to use anagrams. I find anagrams a really beautiful way of bringing humor and lightness back to really heavy topics. So sometimes, for example, when I get really annoyed at Trump, I just remember that his name is 80% rump. And I'm just not angry anymore. I can't be angry at him anymore. I'm sorry, but I just have to do things like that. Because sometimes I just can't deal with people. I'm so sorry if that was really childish, because we could do that with my name too, right? I'm not just picking on him, but when it gets too much, you got to do something. But yeah, so money, for example, an anagram of money is my one. And you find people who are very good at claiming their space and the energy and the credit, they have a lot of money. And so money can teach you a lot about keeping something for yourself. And then say the word wealthy, WEALTHY. A wheel, WEAL, is an old word for a bruise or a wound. And thy, you. So when you put your wound behind you, you're truly wealthy. You're truly free. And often you literally, for example, I've pretty much made a business from my fatal flaw, which was being a skeptic. So, there's a lot of play you can do with money and wealth. It's not maybe getting quite to where you are. To be honest, you're way more advanced than me, Jeff. In that area, I can just guarantee you will know more than me. But perhaps with our powers combined, we can do something great, yeah?
That's what all three of us are here tonight to do, isn't it?
I'm very good at getting people thinking in a different direction, but I don't always like to do all of the extra work. That's actually why I read with my husband most of the time. We've got very different strengths. I kind of get it all open, and then he's right in there. So
he's the 11, isn't he?
What was that?
He's the 11 around you.
Oh no. If he'd been born the next day, maybe. He is a 1, and the 1s get things done.
Oh, okay.
And so in the time that I could maybe talk to one person at my event, he would have set up and packed down the whole workshop. Happens all the time. It's pretty fantastic being married to him. I'd say he's probably going to say it's a lot of work being married to me. Has its joys. But maybe that's why we're having 3 sons, hey? Got to have a roadies. What was that?
was going to go there. I was going to say, if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have children.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I don't think I would have had children, and I'm really grateful we had children. And actually, I'm writing a book, and one of the stories is like we had this many discussions about having children, and he would always just be like, well, it's not time. And one day I was just like, what is the issue? And he's like, I'm a bit worried you won't be very good with children. He's like, you meditate several hours a day. You have to sleep 10 hours. You can't handle noise or mess. I'm worried for the children. And you know what? I had to just cop that. And I was like, you're right. It's going to be hard for me. It's going to be really hard. And so do you know what I did with the manifestation list for the kids? And I said, be incredibly cute so that I don't mind completely changing my whole personality for you. And they're pretty cute. They're pretty cute little kids. So the universe heard me.
I'm going to put there's 2 passages I'm going to put up. This one here is about the empath, which is you. And it correlates with what you've just been saying. The second paragraph does anyway.
Yeah, like the obsession with figures. That's actually what I'm really into dissolving. So obviously as a numerologist, I help people to look at numbers as helpful and healing and creative and like emotional. But a lot of people have an incredibly painful experience with maths and numbers. And I even have people come to my class and I start talking numbers and they go into shock. As soon as I ask them a question, I can see them, they're back in year 6 maths class and they don't know the answer. And girls aren't good at maths and we have to do all this clearing of their crown chakra. So, you know, women obsessed with their physical figures, men obsessed with their financial figures. It just goes on. And even like money, it's just the fear of figures, isn't it? Having a big figure, larger figures, abundant figures. So again, that's where I try to do some unweaving or unknotting, because when you just see the numbers as these kind of beings here to help us, or sort of just symbols and healing tools. Money happens. Money just happens. I'm not saying every single time you become like a zillionaire, but money definitely happens because money comes from people. And when you don't have that, I don't know, that fear, that the people come back and the money comes back. Almost always the people who worry about money, there's something going on, you know, in their relationships or even their health. Otherwise, why would you worry? Because if you've got friends, they'll feed you, they'll give you a house, they'll lend you a car. You know, you're only ever, like I say, you're only ever one swipe away from $1,000. There's always, you know, if you really have a need, someone will help you out. I was in fundraising for so long. I saw so many people who didn't have much money and they would just give, you know, if they really believed in the cause.
Well, the last paragraph I put up was to say that you've got to have people brave enough to call you out on your shit.
So this is the one thing I think is most missing in our society, is those conversations between young and old.
Okay.
Conversations between young and old. It's a real superpower in a family because it means there's a direct transmission of knowledge, but also a direct transmission of hope. Like I think I was reading a Deepak Chopra book ages ago where in America they were putting creches or kindergartens inside retirement homes.
Oh, okay.
And then they would find there was a dramatic decrease in the need for medication. And also the children would learn about death and illness and humanity and mortality without having to read a book or watch a video. They could actually just see that people get old and you have a certain amount of time, so do something with it. And this is the best possible way to keep people on track. I see a lot of people, they don't take action on their dreams because they've forgotten that they die. I don't know, you just see it, right? They're just like, oh, I could do that later. I'm like, you know, I mean, I believe in reincarnation and everything, but like there's a certain sort of system here. And like when you do actually see sick people or babies and, you know, you just remember that, you know, it's such a, like, you know, like they say, the present is a present, it's a gift. Yes. You're just so much more conscious. And that's why I actually find traveling to developing countries has actually made me far more successful and productive. Like you just go there and they're so in the moment. And when they're joyful, they're really joyful. And when they're sad, they're really sad because the moment is now for them. It's almost a luxury, you know, this idea that we can stave off death. So sorry, I'm not sure how we entirely got there, but we're there now.
We're going with ease and grace. The other thing is that you're staying present, isn't it? So there's others who, like Johnny Farnham would sing, what's his song about singing in the going into the future and trying to manifest the future now, or always living in the future. What's that song? Rather than being in the
I'm
present.
not sure, but I mean, I know when I read The Power of Now, and they talk about how in the now you feel calm and content. If you go in the past, you feel regret. In the future, you'll feel fear. And I know that was very life-changing for me. And I actually, yeah, it really does apply to your breathing, doesn't it? Because people who don't, they don't breathe well, they often don't receive well, they don't let go well. So that's why I was saying with this election, the best thing people could do is literally breathe like a mother in labor, and then we'll all end up in a better place, whatever happens. And we'll make some decisions, and we're making them with the most oxygenation and IQ possible. And then if it doesn't work out, you just make a new decision, you just make a new decision, you just make a new decision. Like I said, I just feel, again, there's just too much emphasis placed on birth and death, not enough on life.
Yeah, it's outcome based, and I think I agree with you in terms of, you know, your approach in terms of wanting to be present and also always focus on the humanity of what's happening.
I'm very buffered where I live because I live in a really beautiful place on the Gold Coast, and I have amazing children and a lovely husband. I am buffered, and sometimes I wonder if I'm too buffered. But I look back at my early life and I wasn't buffered at all. I saw the best and worst of humanity. I worked at the United Nations. I was harassed there. I had to report them to the Australian Embassy when I was in my 20s. I was in government. I was in fundraising. Like I said, I've had a pretty big exposure to humans, so I think I've done my time. Like, I feel twice as old as I am. And I'm finally getting a little bit of comfort, and then all of a sudden found myself being drawn back into politics. Finally took a breather and started a new marathon. I actually blame Ziggy. Ziggy Star bumped down here. I think he must be into all this stuff. He must be a bit sensational.
Are you pregnant?
22 weeks, dude. Obviously, it hasn't traveled to my face. You didn't notice. Yeah, no, there's definitely a baby. It's not just food. Look, it's a baby. Hello, baby.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Ziggy's great. Ziggy's awesome. He's keeping me on track. I've actually had morning sickness, which I didn't have with my last ones. As soon as I rush, Ziggy just pulls the plug and I'm out. I'm like horizontal. He's got great boundaries. And if I talk about, oh, there he goes. As soon as I talk about him, he starts kicking and waving like a madman. Oh, he's going to be a great kid. He's going to really help me to not be an idiot.
I wouldn't say that.
I don't think I'm going to get away with any of my previous behaviors, like procrastination and not speaking up. Ziggy seems like a real clear channel. So like I said, maybe that's why I seem a little over-optimistic, because I am pregnant. And, you know, when I told people I was pregnant, you know what someone said to me who's really close to me? They're like, what makes you think you can predict the future? No one's having kids right now. It's the worst time you could ever have kids. What makes you think you know it's going to be okay? I'm like, I'm a psychic.
She's just projecting.
And I just said, he told me it would be fine. He's like, like I said, I wouldn't waste my time coming to Earth if it was going to suck.
Good call.
I trust the avalanche of beautiful spirits coming in. You just have to look at these children's eyes, and they're up for it. They're really up for a new world. They're not afraid. I think a lot of them were old souls from the wars, and they know that war is not the way, and they've come back to give it a second go, and then hopefully use, you know, like I said, like community healing, conversation, and activism instead.
Well, that's it. Maybe we're just setting the stage so that they can go in and do their thing.
Well, the numerology for the children is so radically different. Most of them will know their purpose between about age 6 and 18, whereas most of us knew our purpose in numerology probably from 20, 30, or 40. So they're 2 to 3 times as fast as us. And I've said in a number of my other classes and interviews, if we don't get out of their way, they will explode. They'll be hard to handle. They'll be angry. They'll be breaking out in all kinds of diseases, I guess, or immune reactions. So it's actually really important for me to get my message out there. These kids are ready to go. They're already pre-baked. And I'm just telling you, like, these kids, they're already They're ready to take over politics. You just give them another 5 or 10 years. I think with the political landscape will be so different. And I've said over and over again, the minority will become the majority. The dinosaurs are going extinct.
Well, it's the pyramid complex of our birth charts, isn't it? You know, like after World War II, we had such a loss of human life, and then now we've got this pyramid, and it's inverting, isn't it?
It's interesting. I talk about this a lot. So most people born in everyone born in the 1950s has 1, 5, and 9 in their date of birth, which creates a line up the chart, the survivor line. So all those children came in and they'd been fully briefed that they would be dealing with a lot of missing links, and they pretty much raised themselves. So even the numerology suggests that before we come to Earth, we are very much watching the news beforehand, and we know what we're in for. I can't tell you enough. Like, I did the Trump family's numerology on my Yahoo article, and all the turning points coincide, like with Donald and his son, and Donald and Melania. It all coincides. So that's why I like numerology. It just takes the sting out of being a human. You can see a lot of this stuff we've already planned, and then the stuff that's not planned, that's where we can just apply our full attention. Sort of like booking a working holiday, and you know where you're going to stay, but you can choose your meals and your company. Some things you don't need to worry about. They're very much coming for you.
There's a greater plan. There's a greater plan at hand, and we don't have to know the details, but we can just trust that it's in progress. So thank you very much, Sarah, for giving us that really detailed insight and bringing your personal experiences to the stage and the present situation that we find ourselves at.
You're welcome. I just wanted to share, there's a prayer I use when I feel like I'm going a bit cray-cray, and it's a little bit based on something my mentor Caroline taught me, but I basically say, what is it? Thank you, universe, for looking after everything and everyone, everywhere, all the time, without my help.
Oh, that's very good.
I just remind myself that if I was responsible for the sun coming up, we would be in trouble because I'm always late. So, like, I have my little hacks, and it works for me. So feel free to try it at home. But yeah, you're right. We're working with millions and millions of beautiful beings and spirits, the animals, the trees. They're all wanting to be alive. If you go out there and you plant a seed, like, it grows, because we're in a positive planet. This planet wants us to survive, I believe. And that's coming from an environmentalist. Like, I've really seen a lot of the people who think that humans are a plague on the planet, and I don't agree with that at all. When you really tune into nature, it's like, I'm so glad you're here. Someone to play with, yay. And remember, heart is an anagram of earth. So people who stay in contact with earth, they're really grounded, they get their hands dirty, they're the ones who are really coming from the heart. It's what gives them so much strength in times of crisis. So I would literally say, if you're struggling with all this US election stuff, literally go out, get your hands dirty, do some gardening, remind yourself you can create life. And whatever happens is whatever happens, and you will just keep making choices, and together we can just keep moving on this journey towards awakening. Individual waves are not as important as, the oceans and where the oceans are going.
Hey, it just goes to show you how much Donald Trump's been able to get his message out to the world. And here we are in Queensland, and I've just been reminded that we've got an election on Saturday for the whole state.
That's right, on Halloween. And we're having all our elections during a Mercury retrograde. Who did that?
Yeah, I mean, isn't it? That says a lot about the influence of America in everybody's global basis on their. It's a global diet. We've been fed, and yet here we are in our own backyard in Queensland, and we've got an election coming up for the whole state. Nothing's been said about it.
Oh, well, in the groups I'm in, there's been a lot said about the Queensland elections. Yeah. But I tend to be in groups of people who we really care. We really care. And I'm aware not everyone is super into that, but all I can think of is in numerology, every word has a number, and vote has the same vibration as God. So I do always encourage people to vote. I think even just the act of walking into that booth and showing up and being present, it can focus you on where you really want to go in your life. So I always encourage people to get into the process. I know there's a lot of people who don't even bother. They'd rather get fined. But I just think it's really important that we keep showing up. Otherwise, when the time comes and we need to speak up and defend ourselves, we haven't built those biceps. We haven't built that strength to show up. So I do encourage people to vote whatever they do, choose whoever they choose to vote for.
You're doing that from a perspective of going to sleep at night and putting a little prayer out, a little request, or just turning up and being autonomous and just ticking the box because that's what you've been told? I mean,
well, you got to remember I was a scientist, so I prefer to do a bit of research before I walk in. Otherwise, I'm the type of person, whatever pamphlet I get, I'll be like, oh, that looks great. So I've learned, even things like this interview, I've done all my prep because, otherwise I tend to be a little bit of a people pleaser. And, I know my weaknesses much better now. I have to have taken that private time, and then when I go out into the public, I'm myself, and I'm not just someone else's loudspeaker. So I do encourage people to do some research, but just to remember, like I said, the show's not over after the birth. There's still plenty of work to be done.
Oh, that's good, Sarah. Julia, you want to sign off there, or you want to get Sarah to sign off with another version of that prayer? Because
were there any questions or anything from tonight?
Yeah, that one there, Sarah. Anne just asked you about.
Yeah, sure. So I use this prayer at the start of all my classes, and it's just, dear universe, thank you for looking after everything and everyone, everywhere, all the time without my help. And I do that a lot, trust me. And like I said, when I get stuck, I'll say, please show me the lesson so I can integrate it and move on. And almost always I'll get like a flashback of, hey, that's when I was like this, or that's when, and I just integrate it and I go, oh, yep. And I don't let conflict stick to me anymore. And those are all the hacks I talk about in my Develop Your Intuition webinar, which is on my website. I've got a little bit of a random question here. Someone said that his son has too much 9. That's an interesting way to put it. That would suggest to me that you personally may have 9s that you're not quite understanding, or maybe there's something going on there. But the 9 energy, so they're all chakras, but 9 is the soul blueprint, and this is someone who's very connected to the cosmos. My little son Forrest is a 9. When he was so my practice is I don't finalize names till I've met the child, because I think that's polite, and also it means I can fill in the numerology grid. So Forrest is a 9, and he gave me his name after birth. He gave me his middle name, and I Googled it, and it was a real name from the Holy Grail, actually. And then I realized it would give him a 9 name. And I argued with him for like a week, and this is me literally staring into the eyes of a newborn having an argument. He was determined. He's like, this is my name. I'm like, this is Al Capone's numerology. I don't want you to be a gangster. But then I found out actually like Queen Elizabeth and stuff. There's a few people who have a similar chart. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe, I don't know. You could maybe use your powers for good at some point. You might be a handy person to know. So my son has all 9s. My husband has lots of 9s, and my other son has 9s. And so I'm surrounded by that. And all I can say is 9s help you to let go of judgment. So maybe that's all I can say. And also have a look at my site, sarahayip.com, under Find Your Life Path. They help you to let go of judgment. And they can be incredibly confident, and that can really trigger people because they'll, a lot of us have been taught to doubt ourselves, but 9s are old souls, and they've been here and done that, and they don't waste time. So they will make you more efficient, and they will make you reach out for help. So there are some benefits to having children with all 9s, and they do tend to be independent early. So just a suggestion, it's not all lost. It's not all a lost cause. So I hope that helped.
Oh, that was Richard Christie.
Yeah, no worries. Like I said, I've got heaps of information because my own son is a 9. And it's worth looking into. You might find that your son is actually opening up you to a complete new direction in your life, because 9's very good at that. They are where the buck stops, and they help you to literally die to your old self and start again.
2810 or 2810. Yeah.
Who's a 2810?
That just come through.
Do we know who that's from?
Female.
Does she just want to know about it? Okay, well, again, I have a lot of information on my site, sarahayip.com, and to find your life path. I have videos on the 2810, in fact, because my husband's a 2810, so this is the Healing Hands Pioneer. They're often quite good at, they're alternative thinkers, alternative healers. They're healing their root chakra. They're the black sheep of their family. There's heaps I could talk about there. All I can say is a lot of it's on my site, and you probably get the full picture if you actually go there. And a lot of it's free, and then there's also these little classes you can download.
Yeah. And Sarah also has a Patreon. You have a Patreon site, don't you, where people can subscribe to and get regular readings from you. So.
Oh yeah, well,
thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah. Oh, super welcome. Yeah, no, Patreon's the best place to go. If you see 1111 repeating numbers, you love my work, you like my Facebook page, Numbers Queen, I'll be moving a lot of my work onto Patreon because I'm going on maternity leave soon. And I do live calls, mentoring, lots of early access, lots of discounts. It's a pretty amazing group of people. Everyone's name is listed at the top with their life path. So it's just a special place to be. So yeah, thanks so much, Julia and Jeff, for letting me yabber on. Very, very, very privileged to be here.
Oh, thank you for doing all that research and work, and being brave to remote access some of the key players on the stage at the moment. But
can I share one tiny little story about the royal family that I never got to tell anyone?
Go for it.
So I was doing the royal family's charts because I wanted to do this Prince Harry prediction, and because I'm a bit curious. And I just could not get into their energy. It was literally like trying to climb Buckingham Palace. Like I just couldn't get in. I thought, oh, maybe I'm not meant to do it. But I've actually had this happen before, and I thought, no, maybe it's just a test. Because why would my guides give me the idea if I couldn't do it? Because they're not like that. They're efficient. And so I actually just said, okay, show me how the hell to do this. Show me if it's even possible to get into that energy field. And I just randomly somehow Googled break-ins to Buckingham Palace on the net. And I found there was this mentally ill guy, also a 2911 like me, and he climbed the fence to Buckingham Palace, I think in the 70s, and he just intuitively found an opening in the window or the roof. He went in and he ended up on Queen Elizabeth's bed.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And when I read that, I just knew that was the spirit sign that they wanted me to go in there, and I just had to just trust. And so what I found with all of my royal family articles, Trump articles, I have to have an insider. I have to have someone who energetically is open to working with me. In that case, it was actually Harry. In this case, I prefer not to say, but it was someone in the Trump family. And I was able to get into the family through that to do the reading for everyone's highest good. So these are some of the little hacks. And, like I said, I do feel I feel very lucky, but I have to say it's not an easy job, especially when you're pregnant. I'm a little bit nuts, but that's probably part of my charm, right?
Absolutely. Sarah, we love you.
Yeah, that's what can I say? I've always been like
that.
This.
To go where no one else is.
So if you like my nuts, please go to sarahayip.com. And like I said, thanks Julia and Jeff. And I just hope that this has helped people to think from a different direction, and that they remember that they are energy bodies of 60 meters diameter and so incredibly powerful. They've created themselves from a little cell into a whole body. Please don't be scared of other people. That would just be such a shame.
Very good. What are we doing?
I think we're winding up.
We're winding up. Thank you, everyone.
Ziggy's getting hungry. I can feel him. Okay, well, thanks everyone, and hopefully see some of your viewers on my Facebook site. Happy to interact with them at the Numbers Queen or Psychic Sarah Yip. There's one of my fans right there who's also a little nuts. God bless her.
Good night. Thank you for listening.
Good night. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks for being the best. And 11:11.
All right. Very good.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks. That was pretty epic. Woo!